Now that we've learned a whole bunch of new mechanics, it would be a shame to have to only be able to integrate them into a single level. The next two tutorials are going to cover some systems that are going to allow us to not only move the player within a scene and add things kind of like potentially checkpoints or different warp pads and stuff, but also to be able to move the character between levels so that we're able to create more dynamic and diverse content. For now, let's head into our script resources, and we're going to get the teleport player and the player fall warp scripts, the final two ones we haven't talked about yet from the preset package list. And the first thing that we want to deal with for now is just attach this, what do I call it again? Player fall warp script to my player. Actually, let's get all these scripts to be more organized into our script folder. I haven't been doing the greatest job of that. So now I should be able to see inside of this, if it works. Oh, there we go. All the scripts I've been working with. I could even create subfolders to organize these into subcategories. But for now, what I'm going to do is have a player fall warp script attached. Let's take a look at what it does. I get access to a warp point. Talk about that in a sec. And then I also want to have the ability to set a teleport floor level. What this tells Unity is what is the y-axis height, so remember y is up and down, that I want my player to be automatically teleported when they reach. So if I fall off the edge, how far do I want to let my player fall? I'm going to set mine right now to just be a modest -5, but you can set yours to be lower. Don't save it at 0, otherwise you're going to have your player endlessly teleporting in place and be very confused. Also, just be mindful of the level that you set your ground at. So for example, if I look at my floor, my ground, its y is at 0. But if you accidentally had yours lower or higher, you might have to set this floor level a bit differently. And here's what we're doing here. If the character's position is lower or equal to that floor level, then what I want to do is get access to my player's character controller, and then I want to teleport the player back to the surface. A quick note for the coders, that character controllers have a bit of a finicky aspect to them where I can't just teleport while the controller is active. It overrides it. So I have to turn the controller off, and then I can move it, and then I can turn it back on. A bit of a strange thing, but that's just how Unity's developed it, so we have to work with it here. One more thing that we need to do is determine a point at which we want to warp to. And this is going to be basically kind of like the equivalent to the start of our level. I'm going to move my player back for now. And one more thing that I want to do for this section is create an empty game object. I'm going to call this my warp point, or maybe maybe I'll call it my starting point. Come on, click. And I want this to be exactly where the player begins. So what I want to do actually is take my player's position, copy it, go to my starting point, and then paste it there. So the warp point, starting point is exactly where the player is. And now on my player, I want to have my starting point be the game object that I warp to. Now when I run my game, if my player falls off the edge, it should, after falling a little bit, land right back where it began. And now I have the ability to send my player back to where it started. I also have the potential ability to create some other types of warps. For example, if instead of updating based off of falling, I touched a pad, and instead of having this pad destroy something, I can have the pad teleport my character somewhere to have a bit of a warp system. So let's see here. Let's get this up and running. I'm going to repurpose this here, and maybe I'll give it just a bit of a different material. Let's just give it a black material for now, just so it stands out as being something a little bit different. And instead of having this toggle on or off script, we have another script that we got up and running here that we called teleport player. And what this script does is it looks for, well, kind of the same thing here, except that rather than looking for the height the player falls, like I just said, instead it's looking for a trigger that, once it's triggered, will take the player and teleport it somewhere else. I'll let you study the code yourself if you're interested, but what I want to make sure that I have happen here is that there's a location the player teleports to when this pad is stood on. And just to make this really obvious here, I'm going to copy my starting point. I'm going to just call this the teleport point. And I'm going to put this in a much different place. let's take this and make the player get teleported. Let's say, I don't know, let's create a whole other ground level. Let's just take this one and let's shrink it down quite a bit. And let's move it over here, back up here, and have like a bit of a vantage point of the level that's a bit different. And then take my teleport point and move it above here. So I kind of have the secret special place that my player is not able to get to unless they teleport. Let's just kind of make sure that it's in a good position on this platform here. I think that looks pretty good. And so now I can take this teleport pad and I'm going to attach the teleport point to it. When the trigger occurs, I should be seeing this ground. I'm going to call this the upper platform, be the place the player now appears. Let's see if I can get this to work properly. First try. Move over here, and this trigger pops the player up onto this teleport location, and now I have this high vantage point that I can jump off of. Back down below, I have a nice bird's eye view of things, changing the color as I go by, and bam, I teleport back up. So suddenly I have the ability to send the player to different places, as well as respawn them if I fall off the edge of the map using this teleporting. Noting that I can also integrate it with this trigger system or just build my own custom one. Lots of new features available here. I think that's all for this video. In the next one, we're going to wrap things up by thinking about creating multiple levels.